What's up, guys? We're gonna get right into it. What's going on, Bryce?
Not much, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. We are in pre-playoff weekend for the NBA, and we had some exciting games last night, and we're gonna have some more games today. How excited are you about the playoffs this season?
Very excited.
I can tell.
It's not. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm like that with everything, so it's okay. But no, I'm excited because some of the teams fell, and some other teams climbed that I wasn't quite expecting. So I'm actually excited to see how the teams stack up against each other, like where they slot, who they have to play round one, that kind of thing.
Got it. Well, apparently our fans like it when we go down the standings, so we're going to do that first and just go down the standings and see where everyone falls. Again, to our five fans, thank you. We appreciate the love. Our YouTube channel is growing. Our subscriber number is going up. We got another subscriber this week, so I shouldn't say five fans anymore. I should say six fans. But thank you guys so much for all the love. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. Let's take a look at these standings. Bryce, I know you can't see my screen, so just follow along. So we're going to start with the Eastern Conference as always. The Philadelphia 76ers, again, are the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn's number two. Milwaukee's number three, where they've been at for the majority of the season. The New York Knicks have been holding down the fourth spot for a while now. The Atlanta Hawks are five, and then the Miami Heat are six. So from that top six, potential playoff matchups right now, which may change later, but our potential playoff matchups right now are the one seed playing the winner of seven seeded Boston and eight seeded Charlotte, and Brooklyn playing the winner of the Washington Wizards at nine and any other Pacers at 10 in the play-in tournament. We'll dive into that in a second. Then we have the 3-6 matchup, which right now is looking at Milwaukee and Miami. And then the 4-5 matchup is New York and Atlanta. Which one? Which one of those first round matchups do you think are going to be a barn burner?
Um, if Miami and Milwaukee's first round, that's going to be like that's going to be a big matchup. That's probably the most exciting in round one, even though I want to watch and see what New York does. But
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee Heat has to be.
Little history there, of course, as we know. Um, the Heat almost beat Milwaukee last night without Jimmy Butler, so we still played them tough regardless. So we'll see what happens with that. Milwaukee will have a chip on their shoulder since the Heat dispatched them extremely easy last season. So Milwaukee's going to come gunning. They got a couple of upgrades from last season with Drew Holiday and Bobby Portis Jr., who actually comes off their bench. So we'll see what happens there. The play-in tournament, though, Charlotte and Boston for one game to advance. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I like that they for one game, everybody needs to just be on their shit. Like
Mhm.
I like that pressure. Whether you agree with the play-in tournament or not, I like that pressure to see how a team steps up. So I mean, it's not traditional, but it's adding to the excitement for sure.
Definitely. Boston's been up and down for the last few weeks, but they've won their last game. Charlotte has actually lost four straight games. So even though both teams aren't playing the best, Boston will have a little momentum going into that series. Well, I should say just one playing game. And I will say that Boston actually has a huge game today against the Knicks. So we'll see what happens there. Then you have the not.
even with
Oh, go
even
ahead.
without those records leading into this game, I think my pick. I think Boston wins that game. I think it'll be close, but I think Boston wins that game.
If Boston was 100% healthy, I would pick Boston. But with Jalen Brown being out, I'm actually going to go with Charlotte for one game. Um, because Charlotte, when I tell you Charlotte has shooters, they have shooters. I've seen them a lot this year. My little cousin plays on team, so I've seen them a lot this year. I've seen them play against Miami, and they've given us fits behind the 3 point line. So they got some shooters on that team. The next matchup was going to be the Wizards and the Pacers. I've seen these teams play a couple of times within the past week or so. Both games have been close. Um, Bradley Beal's been out for the past week. which has impacted my fantasy league slightly. But he's been out for the past week. I'm going with the Wizards. I don't think anyone. If you tell Russell Westbrook he has to win one game, I don't think anyone wants to be on the other side of that. How do you feel about Washington and
Um,
Indiana?
Washington's my pick for pretty much the same reason. Also, Indiana, especially like Sabonis, they can look right at sometimes, but lately I feel like Washington was trending up.
Hmm.
So I think the momentum is a little bit more with them and Westbrook. So I agree with you. I think it's Washington.
Washington was trending up, and coincidentally, just looking at the standings, there's a three-way tie between 8, 9, and 10. So between Charlotte, Washington, and the Pacers, there's a three-way tie. So that play-in tournament actually isn't locked down. Those matchups aren't locked down. This may actually change by tonight, because I believe all of those teams are playing. So this is gonna be a great fucking day of NBA. Let me tell you. I get pumped for this. And yesterday, I literally watched basketball all day, including the Hall of Fame. And I told my wife, I was like, I don't understand how I was able to do this when I was a kid. Dude, I had to drink like a 20-ounce Red Bull to keep going. All right, let's see
You
what we
didn't
got.
used to need that Red Bull. You just
I know,
used it. You just used it because, but you didn't used to need it. So
bro, I needed it
I feel
yesterday.
you.
Bro, I watched 4 hours of the Hall of Fame yesterday. All
You
right,
picked a good year to watch that much.
man, look. I mean, I watch it every year, but like I said, we'll get into that later. All right, for the Western Conference, we have Utah at 1, Phoenix Suns, the Denver Nuggets, the LA Clippers, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Portland Trailblazers. That's your top six. How do you feel about the top six? Because we have Phoenix at number 2, Denver at 3. The 4-5 matchup is actually going to be a rematch of last year's first round matchup with the Lakers. Forgive me, the Clippers and the Mavericks. So that's going to be a rematch there. And then you got Dame. Dame's in there, bro.
It reminds me of the East, not
Yeah,
having like
everybody's close.
yeah, it reminds me of the East. It's not like a clear cut favorite. I mean, not the ones that we picked. We both picked LA or the Lakers to repeat, and they've had their issues for sure, injuries and.
Mhm.
But what surprised me is that Phoenix has pretty much kept their position the entire season.
Right, right.
I mean, they had the number one spot for a little bit, right? Or
Yeah,
did
for a
they
little
ever?
bit.
Yeah.
They had it for
So
like a couple of nights, couple of nights. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, Utah being up there is is wild. I think to me a little bit, but the fact that Phoenix has been up there consistently all year is still impresses me. Which I mean, we thought they'd have that kind of success because of the Chris Paul effect, but I just didn't know how consistent. I didn't know exactly how it would work, and it looks like it's
Mhm.
just been
Oh,
phenomenal.
that they've been firing on all cylinders. Actually, um, there's
Is
one
there a
thing I want
system he can't fit into and be successful in? Like we
to.
knock him
No,
for like some of his playoff success and like or lack thereof, but I mean when it comes to being like the point guard or the QB, or I mean, is there like a better guy out there that can just go and be successful anywhere?
no, and he's like 36. It's like he's becoming ageless at this point. Generally, point guards play longer anyway than bigs, but Chris Paul is like ageless at this point. There's something trending in the Western Conference. So we did this a couple of weeks ago. When I look at the last 10 games played, I'm going to read some teams and I'm going to read their last 10 because we have a trend in the West similarly to how we had a trend in the East. So last 10 games, Utah Jazz 73. Last 10 games, Phoenix Suns 73. Last 10 games, Denver Nuggets 73. Last 10 games, Golden State Warriors, who are in the play in, 73. Last 10 games, Memphis Grizzlies 7-3. So there's some good basketball being played. And we actually have a couple of 8-2s. Dallas is playing 8-2 right now. And then Portland is 8-2. So the West is firing on all cylinders. The LA teams, the LA Twins, the Clippers and the Lakers are both 5-5, which leads us to the play-in tournament. So LeBron said, I believe it was yesterday, he came back. LeBron said he's not afraid to play anybody. He's ready for anybody that comes along. But we do know that LeBron didn't. He stated that he wasn't a fan of the play-in tournament. So they're looking at Golden State right now, possibly because Golden State's tied with Memphis. But as of right now, the Lakers are looking at Steph Curry for the play-in game. Ratings wise, history wise, oh shit moment wise. How do you think this may happen?
Well, I tell you, there's like there's a few guys in the league that I mean, if you need them for one game, like they show up and they can win it on their own. You got, I mean, LeBron James can do it. Damian Lillard can do it. Westbrook, Durant, Irving, and Steph Curry. So the fact that Steph Curry is on that team, I
Jimmy Butler.
mean, so we aren't talking about the fucking Heat right now. I know you guys slip it in somehow, but we're not talking about them. Um, yeah, that is wild. I mean, Steph Curry, as much as anybody on that list, I mean, he gets hot. He can break records. He has no range. He's shown that he can keep that team competitive on his own, which I think everybody was kind of impressed with this year.
Right.
He let everybody know why he won an MVP, why he won that team championships, and why he's the leader of that team. He got on those boys earlier this season. That was impressive to watch because you don't really see that side of Steph all that often, at least in the media. You just see him cool, calm. So I like it. I mean, and like you said, the legacy of those teams and some of the players on those teams. I mean, you can't ask for a more exciting matchup for a play-in game. I feel like.
This is and I want to shout out one of my new writers, Jules, because he actually did an article on Steph Curry. You know that month tear that Curry went on, and he actually had a paragraph in there that illustrated how Curry kind of got on to his teammates. Now I hadn't seen it until I read
Mhm.
Jules' article, and I was like, wow, I missed it. And I was like, well, that's impressive because we don't see that side of him.
I saw the
This,
clip.
yeah, this has the potential, and I'm not like being a fan of the moment, but this has the potential to alter both teams for the next, let's say, 3 to 4 years or however long LeBron's going to play. Because if the Lakers lose this game, it's like a huge red alert. Like there's no way the Lakers should be here, even with the injuries they had. There's no way that the Lakers should be here, but now they're here, and now you're looking at Stephen Curry and also Draymond Green, who can impact the game in so many ways. I mean, he can have 0 points and 19 assists. Like you get what I'm saying? So he can impact the game as well. And we know Draymond's not afraid of anything. So, oh man, I feel for the Lakers. I need the Lakers to get to the finals because I don't want Brooklyn to win the championship. That's just me being petty. I don't want that. So I need the Lakers there in the finals. But I'm actually a little worried right now. If I'm a Lakers fan, I am worried because you have one game, an elimination game. A lot of those guys haven't been in a game seven before. They just haven't. This is going to be tough.
It's gonna be tough, and if you're a Lakers fan, you should be nervous. But I mean, my pick's the Lakers. The
Good.
Lakers should win this game. They have too many tools. I know Golden State has Steph Curry, but at the end of the day, there's very little outside of that. And if things get tough and you put LeBron James on Curry,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what are they going to
Yeah.
do with AD? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no answer for AD at all on that team, in my opinion.
If he's 100%, which I don't think he is, neither one of those
Yeah.
guys.
Mm-mm.
Excuse me. Neither one of those guys are still 100%. And it sucks that our two finalist teams from last year had to suffer with so many injuries this year. But yeah, like you're picking the Lakers, I'm picking the Lakers, but I I'm one of those people where I want to scorch the earth a little bit, and I know if Golden State wins, it'll scorch the earth a lot. So,
I don't even want to know what it's going to like. That sounds
dude,
like crazy. Like it doesn't. It's not even possible, which makes it
bro,
seem like it could happen.
bro, that's what I'm saying, bro.
The same with Portland. I wouldn't want to play Portland.
Oh God, no, God no. And we know even though Denver's been playing great without Jamal Murray, at some point his loss is going to come into effect. And Portland, we love Dame. We have loved Dame for a long time. We need Dame to win. Every year we say this is the last shot, and Dame has to leave, and he doesn't. force his way out. Well, I mean, we say literally for the past 4 years
Yeah.
we've been saying that, right? They have to
Mhm.
do something this year. They were in the conference finals, what, 2 or 3 years ago. They have to do something this year. They're not strong enough to go to the NBA finals, but if they can at least maybe get to the conference finals, fine. It's going to be tough, but Portland's done. I'm sorry. They can't do anything else, man. They cannot.
And like, there's no hate towards Portland from us. We, in theory, like, I like the team.
Right.
I like what they do. I like their messages and I like their players. But for whatever reason, they just can't put it together over there around Dame. And I just,
Right.
as someone who loves Dame, I hate to see it squandered.
Oh, yeah, because we both absolutely adore Damian Lillard. So, yeah. And then also, let's see if, and once again, Porzingis has been out. But let's see if Dallas can rise up and scare the Clippers. I mean, last year they kind of scared them a little bit. It took them to 6 games, but Porzingis went down in the playoffs last year. Um, let's see what Dallas can do. Dude, Luca has been on a tear from distributing the ball to shooting threes. I didn't know for a time Luca was the youngest NBA player to hit 500 threes in the shortest amount of games. Duncan Robinson from Miami just passed him, but I didn't know Luca had that record for a couple of years. I was like, wow, because I didn't know Luca was a 3-point shooter like that. Dude, he's hitting like 6 or 7 threes a game. What the fuck,
He, that guy's a beast, man.
dude?
A beast.
And I've had him in fantasy for like 2 years, probably 2 or 3 years, and I never paid attention to his 3-point numbers because I would always look at his assists and the triple doubles that he would give me. But I never really paid attention to his 3-point shooting. And then I've been watching him more for the past couple of weeks. I'm like, fuck, you know,
Why can't our talent here stateside get at a comfortable in between of where
I'm
they're
not
at
going into that.
now
I'm not getting into that.
compared to Luke? The longevity though, like, why is that not getting taught for the safe? Because you have a guy like Luca and everything he does looks smooth, but it doesn't look fast.
Right, right,
Okay.
right,
And then
right.
you
It's
have our
efficient.
guys who are the most physically talented athletes on the globe. It's like they don't have to go that hard when their legs and everything are breaking down. Why can't there be an in between? Because I feel like there has to be, because these European guys look like they shouldn't even be in a professional sport, and they're like some of the best players we have. So I mean, the other guys are getting their knees blown out. I mean, it's just I don't see why there can't be a healthy in between and have some longevity for these guys.
It's a systemic issue with the AAU circuits, and I can go into this for hours and hours and hours, but I'm not. But to sum it up, just to sum it up, fundamentally speaking, uh, foreign-born players just have better fundamentals. They don't have to play, like you said, they don't have to play as hard. They don't have to play as physical. So from the U.S. standpoint, we look at it as, oh, they're soft. It's got too much finesse to their game. But some of the injuries aren't there. Some of the aggression isn't needed because they can score in a multitude of ways and it's not as hard on the body as some of these kids coming up in the AAU circuits or even in these independent basketball leagues, and their knees are already shot by the time they're 20. So there is a difference there. It's a systemic issue. And also some of these guys, and I've mentioned this before in one of our earlier episodes, have been playing pro since they were 15 or 16 years old. We don't have that here. Um, I tell you, I heard about
Mhm.
Ricky Rubio 5 years, 4 or 5 years before he even came into the league.
Yeah.
I thought he was a ghost because I kept hearing about him. I thought he was Jesus, and then I finally see him. I'm like, this is the kid you guys have been talking about for all these years.
Hmm.
And even look at what LaMelo Ball did. He went and played in Lithuania, and he went and played in Australia when he was 16 years old. So
Hmm.
they're groomed so early to be professionals. Here, you're kind of groomed so early to be a standout athlete and not necessarily a fundamentally sound basketball player. So when you have that, and it's a good question that you brought it up because when you have that, when you think of a guy like Tim Duncan, even though he's from the Virgin Islands, that's a part of the United States. He was so fundamentally sound, he was wrecking other centers here once he came over. Okay,
Hmm.
think of Shaq when he first came into the league. I know you're a little younger. Shaq had to learn how to play other than going through someone. He had to add a drop step turnaround. He had to add the spin move because he figured out I can't just go through people all the time. Even though he
Mm-hmm.
Shaq just admitted something which I already knew. The last time the Lakers won the championship with Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq said he weighed 395 pounds. Well, he was listed at 320. You could look at him. He was a behemoth
Mm-hmm.
back then. I'm like, Shaq's 400 pounds.
I think if Shaq would have came up in the league that we have now, he might not have had to develop some of those things. But there were more
Right,
competitive bigs back then who
right,
literally forced him to have to
right.
do that.
Because those bigs were older and had already developed into their scoring. Oh goodness, I can't say it, but they had already reached their prime at that point. So when Shaq came in, David Robinson was in his prime. He was already winning MVPs. Hakeem Olajuwon was winning championships. Patrick Ewing was going through the finals. So they had already reached their prime of playing, and then Shaq had to learn. And once he did, it took him 4 years. But once he learned that, good lord, okay,
Yeah.
he wrecked the league. So, like I said, there's systemic issues in the United States with the youth basketball culture, um, and it's also there was a time just to get a little personal. There was a time where my son wanted to play at AAU, and I was just like, no, we're not doing that because I didn't want him to learn in that environment. I would rather show him myself. So his last year playing basketball, we did give in and he played. And guess what? He didn't like it because he was the most fundamentally sound of the team, but the quote unquote bigger, stronger, athletic player was getting all the run. So there you go.
Mhm.
Um, that's like the quickest way I can kind of sum
Yeah.
that up. But just to say it again and put a cap on it, European players are fundamentally sound. Um, so predictions I want to get into. Forgive me, I had a
Mhm.
fog in my memory. It was actually going to be the award predictions. So and not the playoff predictions. So forgive me for that. Just remember that.
Okay.
So for example, we talked about MVP one time. Um, I don't believe that's changed. We both think Jokic is going to be the MVP.
He had a
And
big
what
game again the other night,
did he?
or last night, a couple nights
Wow.
ago. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he has that lock. But as we talked about with Chris Paul, kudos to him because if I was voting for MVP, I would give Chris Paul my vote. Um, I would vote
Oh
Chris
wow.
Paul. Yeah, I would vote Chris Paul. I would vote Jokic, and then I would vote Stephen Curry at number three. If you had an MVP vote, who would you
Oh,
do?
uh, Steph Curry is a good pick. I would have said maybe Harden or one of those guys in Brooklyn had they just been able to stay healthy because it's been impressive. Um, Jokic, of course. Yeah, third one. I'm not sure. I mean, Embiid, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good one. Yeah.
yeah, Embiid. But I still think Jokic for me is the one who should win it.
Mhm. Stats
And
stats across the line. Jokic has it. I mean, he's been playing phenomenal. Again, with Murray going down, they haven't missed a beat as of late. The thing with Chris Paul is you have a team that was out. You essentially have the same team that was out of the playoffs last year. You add Chris Paul, and now you're the number two seed in the in the Western Conference, which many people still think is a tougher conference. Um, and it's just that he's ageless. He's not aging. He's helped Devin Booker to play off the ball more. He's teaching Devin Booker how to be a professional. Um, I'm absolutely loving everything that's going on in Phoenix right now. So that just for sentimental reasons, that's why I would give Chris Paul my vote. I think Riley agrees with me because he just walked up to me. Um, so Coach of the Year, which is equally as tough because with us just talking about Phoenix, you have Monty Williams, who has proved himself as a head coach. I mean, he proved himself before in New Orleans, but now with his second shot, he's proven that he's the real deal as a coach again for all the obvious reasons with the Phoenix Suns. But there's also my man in New York, Tibbs. No one thought New York would have been this good, this quick. You know, with his first season there. Who do you like for coach of the year?
Thibodeau.
Got it. I
I
got
was
to go
thinking
with.
him or like Doc. There's some coaches out there like Doc Rivers or like Monty. Like you said,
Mhm.
it's like the team clearly is having success. A little bit different. Doc Rivers stands out to me in Philly a little bit because not really much changed there other
Mhm.
than him, and they seem a little more confident. But the
Oh yeah,
turn that New York has had
right,
is, I mean, crazy. So
right.
I think it's Thibodeau. And if they were lower in the playoffs or out of the playoffs, then obviously not, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, he's kept them so competitive, and I mean, it's straight up his style ball fits their team. I think it's Thibodeau.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And you know the love I have for Doc Rivers, and everywhere Doc Rivers goes, his team's usually first or second. It's just that's just what it is. The biggest change that Doc Rivers made with the Sixers is that he established a guy where the prior coach wouldn't do that. So he told Joel Embiid, "You're going to be the guy. Ben Simmons, you're going to play off of him, and look at the MVP like season that Embiid has had."
Hmm.
So everything's connected there, everything. Like I've always told you that was always Philly's problem. Those boys played too similarly, and they never knew which one was the guy. And I told you, I said when Doc Rivers gets there, Embiid's going to
Hmm.
be the guy. And they still, I will say this until I die, they still may move Simmons in the off season. But with Embiid knowing that now I'm the guy, and he had the year that he had, if he wouldn't have got hurt
Yeah,
and missed that little stretch in the middle of the season, he would probably be right behind Jokic as far as the MVP talk. So because with
yeah,
that beast, the beast in the East is Brooklyn, but you still have Philly number one. Yeah, we know Brooklyn missed a lot of time with their games and stuff. Kyrie out, James Harden out, um, Kevin Durant out. But Philly's been either one or two for the duration of the season. So they've been steady, man.
I know. Do you think Brooklyn can make it to the finals if they don't have all three?
No, they they have to have all three because their other guys aren't that good. So they have to
Hmm.
have all three. Their other guys, their bench is extremely ordinary. So they have to have all three. Two will get you close, but even if
Yeah,
you
I
get
think so.
yeah, two will get you close because all those guys are dynamic. But the thing is, you revert back. Okay, so let's say if Durant goes down and you have Kyrie and Harden, you're gonna revert back to James Harden in Houston. They always lose,
Yeah.
and that's what scares me. With Durant, if Durant's there, okay, let me say this: if you have Durant and Kyrie, you might be able to pull it off. But if
Hmm.
if Durant's not in the equation, it's a wrap. It is an absolute wrap. Because Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, you know what I always say. They'll get you to the conference
Hmm.
finals, but that's it. That's conference
It's
finals, and that's
crazy.
it.
It's crazy to think that like Harden's in the MVP race, but technically, if all three of those guys are active, what is he the third
He's a
option?
third option.
James Harden's fucking third option.
He's the third option. It's not going to be as easy for Brooklyn as the fans would maybe want it to be. It's not going to be as easy because those
It can't
teams,
be.
this Eastern Conference right now is the strongest that I've seen it in years. And I saw something last night. I wanna. So between Philly's number one with 48 wins, Milwaukee's number three with 46 wins, and then the next tier is 40 wins and 39 wins. So there's 8 games that separate all those teams in the top six. That's not a lot. So the East is very, very competitive right now. And Philly's won in their last 10, they've won 8 out of 2. Milwaukee's won 8 out of 2. Um,
I know how
every
you feel about some of these teams in the East
mhm,
for the Heat matchup.
mhm.
Who would you want least, New York or Brooklyn?
Oh, New York, absolutely. No, no, no. We've killed New York all year. No, Brooklyn. I don't want them early. If that makes sense, I want them later. I don't want them early. Um, I'm absolutely not. I want New York. I want the Heat to maybe get the fifth seed from Atlanta, which I don't think they do. They can because Atlanta has a tiebreak. I don't fear anyone in the East but Brooklyn, and I just don't want them super early. We can beat Philly. We can beat Milwaukee. We've ass raped New York all year. Atlanta actually has a winning record against us, but I'm not worried about them in the playoff series because they haven't been there before.
Hmm.
Um, no, I'm not. I don't fear anyone
So
in the
just
Eastern
Brooklyn,
Conference.
a little
Just
bit.
Brooklyn. Yeah. As Jimmy Butler said, I don't know why I can't get my shirt right. As Jimmy Butler said last weekend after we ass raped Boston twice, he was just like, I don't fear anyone. I like our chances against anyone. Um, and if he would have played last night, we might have would
Hmm.
have took out Milwaukee again. Um, so there's a kid up in Minnesota, Anthony Edwards, and then there's a kid in Charlotte, my little cousin Lamelo Ball. Who do you think is going to win Rookie of the Year?
um, For Minnesota, to be honest, I haven't really been paying as close attention to him.
Mhm.
Of course, has he missed any time? Like, has he
He
gotten
hasn't.
hurt in all this?
He hasn't missed time, and that's something that helps him out. I'm going to see if I can pull up his stats real quick. That's something that helps him out because he hasn't missed time. Um, if Lamelo wasn't able to come back, the kid would have won Rookie of the Year. But then Lamelo came back
Yeah,
and was playing well. So now I'm not sure if the young man can win it in Minnesota. But I'm going to pull up his stats. There's so many players I have to look at. Lord have mercy. How do I navigate this
I
website?
I know it's going to be hard for him to win it because the media seems like they've loved Lamelo all year.
Hmm.
If if Lamelo hadn't gotten hurt, hands down, it would be his probably. But
Hmm.
I guess since he did get hurt, it makes it a little more competitive for this other kid. But like I said, I mean, the whole Charlotte team could go off, and you'll see is like LaMelo highlights. Like they they love propping him up,
That's
and
what we're
then
doing.
I mean he's amazing. I mean, not like downplaying his talent, but like that's what they're talking about. That's where the focus is at for sure. So probably LaMelo wins it.
So right now, I'm going to give you the stat line for Anthony Edwards, who my son told me about, and I'm just like, whatever. He's not related to us, so I'm not going to worry about him. All right, so he's played in 71 games. He averages 19.2 points a game, which is great.
Hmm.
4.7 rebounds, which is good. Assists 2.9, so he needs to do better with assists. So not bad. Yeah, those are good numbers for a rook. So I'll give him that. So now let's look at LaMelo, which I know his scoring output is a little lower. So let's see. The kiddies that are watching me navigate this website are probably hilarious. Like, why is this old man can't use the internet? All right. So LaMelo Ball's played in 50 games, so 21 less games. He's averaging 15.7 points a game, 5.9 assists per game, and 6.2, forgive me, 5.9 rebounds and 6.2 assists per game. So more rebounds, more assists, less points, less games. And then when you go to impact on team, Charlotte's in the play-in tournament. Minnesota's not.
Yeah,
That has
my
that has to
pick's
be a part of it.
LaMelo.
Yeah, that has to be a part of it too. Um,
Hmm.
and he's 6'6". That kid is probably like 6'7" now. He's still growing. He's going to end up at like 6'8". I just
He's
saw
gonna be a
where
great like he's gonna be amazing.
I I, I think he's going to be like Penny Hardaway was. He has the same body type as Penny Hardaway. He has the same swag, kind of that Penny had. Um, his teammates, he's listed at 6'6". His teammates have said he's taller. Um, so he's still growing. He's already the taller of the three. Um, so once he puts on a little weight, kind of like Lonzo put on a little weight. Once he puts on a little weight, if he doesn't get injured seriously again,
Yeah,
he's gonna be a problem.
I like
he's
him in Charlotte too. I like the placement of him on that
yes,
team, like propping
yes,
that team up. I think we need
yes.
that. I like that a lot. I like him being there. Like his style.
Hmm.
He if he stays healthy, he's gonna be phenomenal in this
Some
league.
people, some people are actually comparing him to Jason Williams. I think it's a little too early for that for white chocolate comparisons, but some people are already comparing him to that. Just I guess just with his creativity as far as distributing the ball. Like I said, there's a lot of flash to his game. Um,
Yeah.
I, I absolutely love it. All right. So we mentioned yesterday was the Hall of Fame. We had, of course, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant. Those were your top three players. And then we also had Rudy Tomjanovich go in. What are your thoughts on KG? We're just going to go through the list. What are your thoughts on KG as far as his career and being now a basketball Hall of Fame?
I mean, I was gonna my. I mean, I came up at a time to where KG was like one of those guys that where even if you weren't watching basketball, you'd see him.
Hmm.
You I I was always into sports, of course, so like maybe I knew him more than others, but he 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 was like a bigger he was bigger than the sport for a while to me. He was one of those guys that always stood out. KG, Kobe, especially some of the like. I think it helped that like Kevin Garnett was so tall, like big.
Hmm.
It's like for he was a power forward, of course, but I'm having like a hard time expressing myself here. I thought it was like one of the, if not the greatest Hall of Fame class of all time.
Hmm.
So, and of those three, Kevin Garnett is like he's the lower of the three, and I'm having a hard time because I don't see, I always respected him, his game, his attitude. Like I loved that shit.
Right.
I loved who he was on the court and his like. If I had to pick two guys, or if I had to pick between Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan, I would have picked Kevin Garnett all day because I liked his tenacity, I liked his attitude
Hmm.
and stuff. Like I I really related to him without being like ever a huge fan of his or whoever team he was on. I respected him in his game a lot.
Hmm.
So seeing him and Tim Duncan and Kobe, I was blown away. I saw a lot of people were emotional. I was excited that they got to have Jordan induct Kobe. Um, but to get back to KG, I don't even know he to me he's like a legend, and I wasn't even like a big fan of his teams or anything. So I can only imagine how the like Boston fans and who he was on what was it before then
Minnesota.
the Minnesota. So I can only imagine how those fans felt seeing him, and I mean it's a no brainer first ballot, like no
Right.
question.
Right.
Um,
It
so go ahead.
no. It was. I'm an old head. I'm a little older now, so I'm into about my fourth or fifth Hall of Fame of seeing players that I saw come in as rookies and then
Mm-hmm,
retire. So I get exceptionally emotional now. Okay, and it is a great draft class. Now, me and my wife were talking, and she was like, "Isn't this the first class where you see people come in and go?" I was like, "No, that was like 2016." Which you had Shaquille, Yao Ming, and Allen Iverson were the headliners of that one. So that's a very very big one. This one is right there with it. And I tweeted this yesterday on our at Hardwood Nation. I tweeted my first great memory of KG was when he was a rookie, and I was a Rockets fan. With Charles Barkley back in the day. He pulled Hakeem Olajuwon on the baseline. Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest centers and greatest defensive players of all time. Remember, KG was a rookie and crossed him up. So you had two 7-footers on the baseline, and Kevin Garnett hit him with a crossover and scored the basket. I can't remember if he dunked it or laid it
mm-hmm,
in. And I almost lost my mind. I'm like, who the fuck is this kid
mm-hmm,
embarrassing a future Hall of Famer? Who is this? Um, he was exceptional. He could handle the ball, especially earlier in his career. He actually handled the ball more because he was all Minnesota had. He could handle the
mm-hmm,
ball. He could play defense. He could intimidate you in the paint. He could pull out and hit a 17-foot jumper. He was the stereotypical NBA player at that time that you could build a team around. It was him and it was Dirk Nowitzki that you could say changed the era for the big guys. He was fucking phenomenal. Okay. Um, And now we go to Tim Duncan, who was phenomenal in a whole other way. And I know the reverence that you have for Tim Duncan. Um, wow. Little known fact, him and Pop came in a year apart. Little known fact. Pop was GM of the San Antonio Spurs. David Robinson went out with back surgery. The Spurs tanked. Spurs got the first pick in the draft. Greg Popovich fired the head coach and took over the Spurs and drafted Tim Duncan because he knew he could see something special in him. He knew. What are your thoughts about Tim
I mean, when I was younger, like the excitement of the game was one of the things that got me, watching it. I didn't used to watch a lot of basketball, so I'd watch finals or special games, if I knew the teams. The Spurs were not that. The Spurs didn't have necessarily exciting games or exciting playoffs, but what they were was just unrelenting, and to other teams, they were a nightmare.
Duncan?
And Popovich, they had, of course, Parker and Ginobili, but like at the core, always was Pop, and his, right hand man was Tim Duncan.
Right.
And everything I think Pop stood for on the basketball court, he knew Tim Duncan could physically pull off. And I think they had the same mind frame. It's the perfect coach player scenario, and Tim Duncan had all the talent you needed, and fundamentally one of the most sound players of all time. And he even showed late in his career what he was able to do when really driven with a purpose. Because one of his last years, what he did to the league was ridiculous.
Yeah, we can deep dive into that. I mean, we both saw it firsthand, and we know I was on the wrong end of that. So we can
Mm-hmm.
we can tell a quick
and
story.
and no one really expected that. I don't think out of him and out of them. And in hindsight, compared to like if you were in the league or whatever, I just picture him as like the Terminator, just blank face robot that's just gonna walk you down, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to hope that he misses because he's too good for you to stop him.
He walked away quietly after he completed his mission. Now, me and you have talked for years. We've just been podcasting for not even a year yet. I don't. Well, yeah, maybe a year. Hell, who knows? But we've had conversations for years about basketball. That was the genesis of this podcast. We both saw when the Heat defeated Tim Duncan and the San Antonio Spurs. Game 6, Ray Allen hit the shot. Game 7, Miami had to go out there and win an extremely tough game. We saw a dejected Tim Duncan. We saw a Tim that we hadn't seen. We saw a Tim Duncan who actually played well in that series when leading up to it. He wasn't playing that well. We saw a Tim Duncan that I thought was going to retire because he was so
And
defeated after Miami got lucky and pulled that victory off in the 13 finals. I had no idea. You had no idea what Tim Duncan was going to do the very next season. And to me, as an opponent, it's like, damn, I don't want to see those Spurs again. But you kind of knew it was going to happen. I had told people Miami's not going to win the championship in 2014. I thought the Pacers were going to knock us out. I but then we got to the finals and I'm like, oh shit, we playing the Spurs again. Well, hey, we beat them last year. We're going to beat them
mm-hmm.
again this year. I was on the Balls in Our Court podcast with Kevin and Cortez, and I said, hey, the Heat are going to win. They won last year. They're going to win it this year. I had no idea what was coming. I had no clue what was coming. They beat the fucking brakes off the Miami Heat, led by that man, Tim Duncan. And he has all the respect from me in this world. God.
I remember picking him like fifth round in the fantasy league that year,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was one reason. I mean, why I got to see his stats firsthand roll in, and I was just like, what is going on? I was like, it was nothing compared to the year before.
Right,
And so
right.
it got me, paying closer attention to that year specifically. And I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, it's like compared, it might have been flashier for Dirk, but I mean, like Dirk and Tim Duncan, like what they did kind of on their own or through sheer willpower. I mean, as a Heat fan, firsthand what that looked like. Cost you
Oh
a
yeah,
couple championships.
oh yeah,
So, I mean, there's just nothing more to say about the guy. One of the greatest of all time, champion, multi-champion, was able to do it on his own. I mean, or he was able to lead that team and
hmm,
pretty much willed them to a championship. I mean, there's
sure.
nothing better to say. Top-notch professional, and he's always conducted himself with tons of, respect.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
It's amazing.
Pop missed the game, and rightfully so. But Pop missed the game yesterday to fly to the Hall of Fame to see Tim go in, and Tim got a little emotional when he saw him. Just a great moment. Just a great moment. Um, so Kobe, um, to me, Kobe Bryant represents the closest thing to Michael we're ever going to see in an era where people try to find the next Michael Jordan. But we had him in front of us, and it wasn't until the end of his career when people really started to realize, holy shit, Kobe is the next closest thing to Michael that we have. There's so many memories of Kobe. We'll be on here for 3 hours. We don't have time for
We're gonna have to do a Kobe podcast.
that. And in my lifetime, with my eye test, um, Kobe Bryant is the second greatest player I've ever seen play, behind Michael. Um, his will to win, his fiery nature, that sometimes was a detriment to himself and his team, but it's okay. Um, his skill set, his offensive skill set, and when he wanted to, he could lock someone down. You know, five-time NBA champion, two-time without Shaquille O'Neal. Um, just phenomenal, phenomenal. How do you feel about Kobe Bryant?
Um, in the last few years, I think there's very few of us I think that probably haven't went through some heartache. The last few years, I think, have been pretty hard on everybody, and his death kicked off some of the worst years we've had in a long time. It is iconic. His reputation, what he did, not just for the sport, but like for culture and what he stood for. Um, I didn't appreciate him enough earlier on because my dislike for the Lakers is pretty strong. But there's no denying, you can't deny him. You can't deny what that was. And I remember it wasn't a playoff game. Wasn't I don't think there was any weight to this game, but and it was a random game I didn't used to watch much back then. But I saw the duel between him and Wade, where he came out on top, and I think for the first time I was like, to me when I used to watch Jordan as a kid, the feeling I got was you had to beat the mountain. Jordan was the mountain, and he didn't lose. Kobe became that. Kobe wasn't the guy trying to beat people. Everybody is trying to beat Kobe,
Yeah,
and lots of times it didn't happen. His mentality is everything like. What I talked about KG, his attitude, his tenacity, what you'd see him do on the court, get in people's face, hold people accountable, be a leader by leading and showing that you're going to work harder than everybody else. That I respect that more than most things, and no matter what you do in life. Kobe was perfect. Kobe was MJ 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, and unfortunately, some people didn't appreciate it early enough, and now
Yeah,
now everybody misses him.
yeah. Watching his whole career, growing up with a Kobe Bryant poster in my bedroom when he had the little mini fro. um, the kid, oh, the kid, it's just his offensive repertoire was damn near flawless. Just his ball handling, mimicking the fadeaway jumper. Just oh my god, everything was damn near flawless.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Um, his jab step, um, turn up face jab step, hit you with a shoulder shimmy. Oh lord, I'm just
And you didn't want to piss him off and get him on defense. You
oh
didn't want
yeah,
him guarding
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's like in my mind right now, I'm just seeing him on on the baseline, just doing work in the post. Um, there's another Hall of Fame inductee that's very near and dear to my heart. Growing up again, I was a Houston Rockets fan with Charles Barkley there, and my coach was Rudy Tomjanovich, two-time NBA champion as a coach with the Rockets. He was inducted yesterday, and it took a long time. It took a very long time for the Hall of Fame to recognize him. And he actually mentioned that he called out the coaches in a good way. He called out Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra. I guess they have voting capacity. He called them out and said thank you for finally acknowledging him because he should have been in the Hall of Fame. Most of his players are in the Hall of Fame, so therefore you have to put the coach in the Hall of Fame. So it took way too long. So that was touching for me that he called out those guys. But Rudy T also did one more thing, and we're gonna end it on this note because I want to ask you how you feel about this because we've talked about this guy before. Rudy T said, "Since guys vouch for me to be up here, and I'm paraphrasing right now, I have to vouch for someone else to be up here who's not up here." He said Robert Orr needs to be in the Hall of Fame. How do you feel about seven-time NBA champion, Big Shot Rob, eventually making it to the Basketball Hall of Fame?
Um, I mean, it seems like he should eventually get there. I don't. You're gonna have to explain to me what exactly the knock is on that.
Well, in his earlier years, he was a contributor to his first two championships. He was a main contributor. He was a starter to the championships in '94 and '95 with the Houston Rockets. Okay. Later on, he became a role player off the bench with the Los Angeles Lakers and San Antonio Spurs. I might have got them flipped, with Spurs, Lakers, one of them. So he's won championships with the Rockets, the
Mm.
Spurs, and the Lakers. He's won a total of seven. Okay. He didn't play a lot at the end of his career, but in the playoffs, he would play more minutes, and he would usually always hit an open shot. And as he's been kind of vocal about it, and as he said, there's guys with less championships in the Hall of Fame than I am. So he's hanging on to the fact that he has seven. Okay, looking at the Basketball Hall of Fame of all sports, it's the easiest Hall of Fame to get into. Based on that, they just need to put him in. Um,
I know
but
we
I
discussed that, and that's why I didn't mean to cut you
yeah,
off there. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. No, yeah, we've talked about Robert Ory before. He absolutely needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and it shouldn't have taken this long for it to happen. And kudos to Rudy T for saying, "Hey, this guy needs to
Mhm.
be in there." Like, period. um,
Well, I
I
was going to
know.
bring up. I know there's guys that you think shouldn't be in there. I
Correct,
mean, even
correct,
like T Mac. I mean,
absolutely.
you had the biggest problem
I
when T
still
Mac
do,
went in there.
still do, still do, and will always have. It's not a personal knock on Tracy
I know.
McGrady. It's not a personal knock. You haven't done shit. Now, you put Tracy McGrady in, but then you have a player like Chris Webber who didn't do shit growing up, and he's not in. So what's going on? Why is T Mac in and Chris Webber's not in? If you put T Mac in, you might as well put Chris Webber in, right? Or if you have Chris Webber out, you might as well leave T Mac out. So they have to get their parameters in check as to who goes in and who doesn't. But Robert Ory, some of those teams wouldn't have won championships without his contributions. That's why he should be
Mhm.
in the Hall of Fame. When the Lakers beat the Sacramento Kings in Game 7, that was all Robert Ory. That wasn't Kobe and Shaq. That was Robert Ory. He should be in the Hall of Fame. So coming from that space, that's how I feel about it. And like I said, I know we've
I'm
talked
sure he'll
about it
get in.
before. Dude, I text Gerald. I was like, look what Rudy T said about Robert Ory, because and then Robert Ory, I kid you not, Robert Ory was trending on Twitter yesterday
That's
because
funny.
of what Rudy T did. Okay, so hopefully that'll be the start of something big. So that's going to be it for this week's episode of the Hardwood Nations podcast. Again, to our six fans, we love you and thank you. Bryce, you're my brother. I love you to death. We are out.
Same. See you.